Please, you must understand. You are my last hope, she whispered, her voice trembling but undeniably melodic. It wasn't like anything a human ear was accustomed to, a mix of soft chimes and hushed winds. Her large, shimmering eyes locked onto his, pleading. Nathan took a cautious step back, his heart hammering in his chest. The dim glow of her skin cast a faint, silvery light in the otherwise dark forest clearing. He could barely process what was happening. Aliens weren't supposed to be real, and yet here she stood, tall, slender, and otherworldly beautiful, with an aura that seemed to hum with life itself. This has to be a dream, Nathan stammered, shaking his head as if to wake himself up. You can't be real. The alien girl's expression softened, though sorrow still lingered in her gaze. I assure you, I am real. My name is Kaelira, and my people, they're gone. Every one of them. Except me. Her voice faltered, and she looked down at her delicate hands, fingers tipped with faintly glowing points. Our world was destroyed by the Virox, a merciless race that thrives on annihilation. I barely escaped. And now, here I am. Nathan's throat went dry. Why are you telling me this? Kaelira stepped closer, her movements fluid and graceful, like water flowing uphill. Because you, Nathan, are compatible. Compatible? He repeated, the word feeling foreign on his tongue. For what? She hesitated, her luminous cheeks taking on a faint pink hue. To save my species. Nathan blinked. You're not serious. I wish I wasn't, Kaelira replied, her voice heavy with despair. But our genetic code requires specific traits your kind possesses. Without them, my race will vanish forever. Nathan let out a nervous laugh. This is insane. You're telling me I'm supposed to… What? Rebuild an entire alien species? With you? Kaelira's glowing eyes met his, resolute but tinged with vulnerability.
Yes.
He opened his mouth to argue, to say something, anything to make sense of this absurd situation, but nothing came out. Instead, he found himself staring at her. Her shimmering skin, the intricate patterns that glowed faintly across her arms, the way her presence seemed to hum in harmony with the world around her. She was unlike anything he'd ever seen, and yet, there was something undeniably human about her, something that tugged at his instincts. I don't even know you, Nathan said finally, his voice quieter now. You can't just drop this on me. Kaelira's shoulders sagged, the weight of her desperation evident. I know it's a lot to ask, and I don't expect you to decide right away, but time is running out. My body, it won't remain viable much longer, and once I'm gone, that's it. The end of my people. Nathan ran a hand through his hair, pacing the small clearing. The moonlight filtering through the trees gave the moment an almost surreal quality. Why me? Out of all the people on this planet, why did you choose me? Kaelira tilted her head, her luminous gaze scanning him as if reading his very soul. Your genetic markers are unique, strong, resilient. I studied your kind for months before I revealed myself to you.
And
she hesitated, her voice softening. You have a kind heart. That matters more than you realize. Nathan stopped pacing, her words cutting through his whirlwind of thoughts. You've been watching me? She nodded, a hint of guilt flashing across her face. I had to be sure. This is crazy, he muttered, pinching the bridge of his nose. This is absolutely crazy. Perhaps it is, Kaelira admitted, stepping closer. But it's also the truth. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The forest around them was alive with the sounds of night. Crickets chirping, leaves rustling in the breeze, the distant hoot of an owl. It was a stark contrast to the weighty silence that hung between them. If I agree to this, Nathan said finally, his voice steady but tinged with apprehension, what happens next? Kaelira's eyes brightened, a flicker of hope breaking through her sorrow. We will bond. Not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. It's how my people's reproduction works. It's intimate, but it's also beautiful. Nathan swallowed hard. And if I say no? Her gaze dropped, and for a moment, she looked impossibly fragile. Then I will respect your decision, and I will face my end alone. The weight of her words hung in the air, pressing down on Nathan like a physical force. He looked at Kaelira, really looked at her, and saw the pain etched into her features, the quiet strength in the way she held herself despite it all. She wasn't just some alien from a far-off world. She was a person, with hopes and fears and a desperate need for help. And somehow, against all odds, she had chosen him. Nathan took a deep breath, his mind racing. I don't know if I can do this, but I'll try. Kaelira's eyes widened, a single tear tracing a glowing line down her cheek. Thank you, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. You don't know what this means to me. As the moonlight bathed the forest in its gentle glow, Nathan realized his life had changed forever. He didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain. He was no longer just an ordinary man. He was now part of something far greater than himself, a journey that would test his limits and reshape his understanding of what it meant to be human and to love. The days that followed were a whirlwind of discovery. Kaelira explained the process in more detail, describing the connection they would need to forge. It wasn't just about reproduction. It was about unity. Her people shared a bond that went deeper than words, a melding of minds and souls that allowed them to understand one another on a fundamental level. Without it, their species couldn't survive. It will be overwhelming at first, she admitted, her gaze steady as they sat by the river one evening. But you're stronger than you realize. Nathan wasn't so sure. He'd always considered himself average in every way, a small-town guy with a mundane job and an unremarkable life. But Kaelira saw something in him, something he couldn't quite grasp. Their bond began with touch. Kaelira's fingers brushed against his, and a surge of warmth spread through him, unlike anything he'd ever felt. It wasn't just physical. It was as if her very essence was flowing into him, filling him with her memories, her emotions, her hopes. He saw flashes of her world, a vibrant planet teeming with life, now reduced to ash. He felt her grief, her determination, her fragile hope that he could help her save what little remained. It was overwhelming, just as she'd said, but it was also exhilarating. For the first time, Nathan felt truly connected to something greater than himself. As the days turned into weeks, their bond deepened. Kaelira taught him about her culture, her people's history, their art and music and philosophy. In return, Nathan shared pieces of his own world, from the mundane to the extraordinary. They laughed, they argued, they grew closer with each passing day. But not everyone was happy about Kaelira's presence. News of the alien in the forest spread, and soon, others came looking for her. Some were curious, others afraid, and a few were outright hostile. Nathan found himself defending Kaelira, standing between her and those who would harm her out of ignorance or fear. She's not a threat, he told them, his voice firm despite the knot of anxiety in his stomach. She just wants to survive. Kaelira's strength never wavered, even in the face of adversity. Your kind has the capacity for great compassion, she said one night as they sat beneath the stars. But also great fear. I see both in them. Fear's easier, Nathan admitted. It takes less effort. But love is stronger, Kaelira replied, her gaze steady. And it's worth fighting for. Their bond was tested time and again, but each challenge only brought them closer. Together, they faced the unknown, forging a path that was neither human nor alien, but something entirely new. And in the end, they found strength in their connection, proving that even in the darkest of times, hope could shine bright.